There is a moment in every life, quiet, unseen, when the veil thins, when the noise of the outer world no longer satisfies, when the questions we once asked, how do I succeed? How do I attract what I want? How do I change my life? Collapse into a deeper one, who is the cause? And in that moment, if you are willing to be still, if you are willing to remember rather than reach, you will hear it. A truth more ancient than time, soft as breath, absolute as light. You are the operant power, not the observer, not the victim, not the seeker, the cause, not one of many, the only one. Man moves in a world that is nothing more or less than his consciousness objectified. Neville Goddard spoke these words not as theory, but as law. Everything begins in consciousness. Everything is projected outward. And you, not some force outside of you, not some fate written in stone, are the one doing the projecting, not with effort, not with struggle, but with assumption, because assumption is not wishing. Assumption is creation. You do not get what you want. You get what you are, not what you pretend to be, what you persist in assuming yourself to be. In silence, in feeling, in your most honest inner conversations. To be conscious of being is to be alive, Neville said. What? You are conscious of being, you become. This is not a metaphor. This is how the entire system works. Everything you see in your world, the relationships, the finances, the opportunities, or lack thereof, are not random. They are the shadow of your current state of consciousness. They are the photograph. You are the negative. Change the state, and the picture must change. Refuse to change it, and you will relive the same day in different clothes, the same patterns in different names, the same story in a louder voice. Because nothing ever happens outside of consciousness. Nothing. Even time, what we call waiting, delay, divine timing, is not real in the way we think. Time is not the builder. Consciousness is. And the moment you assume a new state, not visit it, not wish for it, but live in it, time begins folding around you. The bridge of incidents is set in motion. And everything not in harmony with your new state begins to dissolve, or move, or leave, not because you forced it, but because it must. You are already that which you want to be, and your refusal to believe this is the only reason you do not see it, Neville said. You are not becoming. You are selecting. You are not earning. You are embodying. You are not waiting for reality to shift. Reality is waiting for you to shift into the state that matches the life you keep reaching for. You have always been the key. But the world has taught you to look at the lock, to fight the door, to wait for someone to open it for you. But you are the opener. You are the assumption. You are the vibration. You are the inner state, and the outer world can only bow to your command. Not the command of your words, but the command of your being. Who are you being right now? This is the question that answers every other one. Not what are you doing? Not what are you saying? Who are you being? Because that state, subtle, silent, undeniable, is shaping the next hour, the next conversation, the next opportunity. Your entire life is not happening to you. It is issuing forth from you. This is the power you have always carried. This is what Neville meant when he said, you are the operant power. You don't wait for permission. You don't beg for intervention. Assume and persist, and the world shifts, not someday. Not if it's meant to be. Not if you've done enough. Now. Because reality is not waiting. It is responding. Imagination is not fiction. It is not fantasy. It is not a place you visit. It is the origin of all form, what you imagine with feeling, you give life. What you dwell upon with emotion, you grant existence. Man is all imagination, and God is man, and exists in us and we in him, Neville said. The eternal body of man is the imagination, and that is God himself. There is no separation between your imagination and the source of creation. There is no outside authority dictating your fate. You are not a visitor in this universe. You are the very canvas upon which it paints. Every image held with conviction, every scene replayed in the secret theater of your mind is a seed. And the world is your garden. Not all seeds bloom immediately, but none fail to bloom when planted with assumption and watered with faith. The world will tell you to be realistic, to face facts, to wait for permission, but facts are nothing more than former assumptions crystallized. They are old thoughts made visible. Yesterday's consciousness made physical today. So if you want to change your life, you must change the place you live internally. You must stop reacting to the world and begin selecting from the infinite field of what already is, because everything you desire already exists in imagination, fully formed, fully alive, fully available, and it is your assumption of that version that brings it forward into visibility, not through force, not through effort, through feeling. Feeling is the secret, Neville whispered over and over, like a mantra to those who had ears to hear, because it is not enough to visualize. It is not enough to speak affirmations without emotion. It is not enough to act while still assuming. The same inner poverty you must feel from the end. You must inhabit the scene. You must sit in the wish fulfilled as if it were already the most natural truth in the world, not just once, not just during the meditation, but again and again, until the state becomes you, until the feeling of being that version of you is more familiar than the longing, until you forget what it was like to doubt, because assumption is not pretending. It is being. It is walking through the world as if what you once prayed for is now so deeply yours. You can't remember when it wasn single quotes t. And as you do, life reorganizes. It bends, twists, collapses and reforms, not because you manipulated it, but because you entered a different room in consciousness. This is the bridge of incidents. Invisible, unpredictable, but inevitable. Once you assume the end, the middle writes itself. You do not need to know how. You do not need to orchestrate the details. You do not need to force your mind to solve it. You need only stay loyal to the end you've chosen and let the bridge carry you. People will appear. Paths will open. Plans will unravel only to reveal better ones beneath. And still, you remain in the state. You do not chase. You do not beg. You do not knock on doors that do not match your identity, because you are the operant power. And when you assume, reality follows. Faith is not loud. It is not desperate. It is not pleading with the universe to make something happen. Faith is still. It is knowing without evidence. It is holding your inner state steady when the outer world still mirrors the old. Neville said, faith is loyalty to the unseen reality. Not a reality you hope to experience, but one you have already chosen as true. And the test is not when everything flows. The test is when the mirror seems frozen, when you walk through familiar places and nothing seems to shift, and still, you persist in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You do not waver. You do not return to begging. You do not explain yourself to those who cannot see your vision, because you understand, the moment you assume the state, it is done. Not someday. Not when the world shows it back to you. Now. The world is a mirror, forever reflecting what you are doing within yourself. Neville wrote, this is why persistence is not effort. It is identity. It is not fighting to hold a thought. It is returning to a chosen state until the state becomes second nature, until it is no longer what you want, but simply who you are. There is no longer striving. There is only dwelling, residing, living from. And when you live from the end long enough, reality bends, not by pressure, but by law. You begin to see subtle signs, not because you demanded them, but because the vibration you walk in begins to imprint itself on the field around you. Doors open where there were none. Old relationships shift, delays dissolve, and what once felt out of reach now feels familiar, inevitable, even overdue. Is not magic. This is mechanics, and the mechanism is consciousness. The driver is you, not you as the personality. Not you as the body, but you as the chooser, the one who selects the inner state and wears it as a garment until the garment becomes skin. And in that skin, you no longer wonder if you're doing it right. You no longer watch the world, waiting for a reflection. You assume. You rest, you move through the world not asking, will it work? But declaring, it is already done. Because the operant power doesn't plead. It doesn't push. It moves, and reality echoes. There's a doorway in consciousness, and few walk through it, not because it is hidden, but because it asks for something most are unwilling to give. Who? You thought you were to assume a new state. You must release the old. And not just in theory, but in vibration, in memory, in the subtle stories you tell yourself when no one else can hear. This is why Neville taught revision. Not as a way to escape the past, but as a sacred rite of rebirth. Change the feeling of the past and you change the future, he said. The past and future are a present whole, and all exist now. You are not bound by what happened. You are bound by how you remember what happened. Because memory is not a record. It is a living, breathing state of being. When you revise, you're not lying to yourself. You are selecting a higher timeline, a more aligned version of events, and choosing to become the one who lived it. You take back your power from moments that shaped you into someone smaller, and you shape yourself anew. You rewrite conversations. You reframe endings. You revisit traumas, not to deny their pain, but to extract their gift. And the version of you who emerges is lighter, freer, more aligned with the wish fulfilled. Then the wound repeated. Because the only thing keeping you from the state you desire is the version of you who keeps defending the one you've outgrown. So let it fall away. Let the mask slip. Let the identity dissolve. Let the "I've always been this way" voice lose its grip. You are not your patterns. You are not your past. You are what you assume yourself to be. Now, the world will reflect it. But only when you no longer need it to. That is embodiment. That is the operant power fully awake, no longer negotiating with reality, but choosing its frequency moment by moment. And when the old thoughts rise again, as they will, you do not fear them. You do not resist them. You simply say, that is no longer me. And you return back into the state, back into the knowing, back into the version of you who doesn't need to force, because they already are. You begin to walk differently. You speak differently, not to impress, but because something has shifted at the root. You no longer identify with trying. You've become the one who has already received. You're not waiting for the evidence. You're walking as the evidence. You're not affirming in desperation. You're breathing from truth. You're not visualizing to attract. You're remembering what's already yours. And the world, the mirror, the shadow of your inner state will shimmer, adjust, and reflect. Because you are not just imagining. You are operating. You reach a point on the inner path where there is no longer a gap to close. No more next level to chase. No image of success that promises more than the quiet now. Because you have become the one who knows, not the one who talks about the wish fulfilled. Not the one who journals it. Not the one who meditates hoping to get there. You are there. You live from it. You breathe from it. You respond from it, naturally, effortlessly, without performance. This is what it means to embody the state. You don't visit it in your imagination for 10 minutes and then return to lack. You don't get excited by synchronicities and then collapse into doubt. You live it, without explanation, without announcement. The world doesn't need to know what you're assuming. It only needs to feel it when you walk into the room. Grounded, certain, light, present, because your inner state speaks louder than words. And when the inner is complete, the outer is inevitable. This is the stillness of the operant power. You're not trying to make reality bend anymore. You've remembered that you are the one who chooses how it unfolds, and so you rest, not in passivity, but in deep, anchored authority. You are no longer entangled with outcomes. You no longer ask, when will it happen? You ask nothing. Simply assume and allow, because you are no longer playing the game of becoming. You are now the one who has already become. This is what Neville meant when he said, "Dare to believe in the reality of your assumption, and watch the world play its part relative to its fulfillment." Reality has no choice but to reflect your inner conviction. It is not personal. It is not emotional. It is mechanical. The moment you assume, fully, completely, unwaveringly, the process begins. The bridge is built. The way is made. The outer must conform. And you no longer chase. You no longer wait. You no longer hope. You simply dwell in the state. You become so saturated in the feeling of already having, already being, already knowing, that reality cannot help but remember along with you, because there is nothing more powerful than a being who has remembered who they are, the one who lives from the end, the one who no longer reacts, the one who has stepped into the inner kingdom and closed the door behind them. That is you. You are not a seeker. You are not a beggar. You are not a reactor to the screen of life. You are the operant power. You are the one who selects, who assumes, who persists, who embodies. And reality is just your echo.